the difference between Hinduism and Krishna consciousness? Is it just the same, or like what is, why should we worship Krishna? Why don't we just worship, the other 3 million gods out there, or is it all the same?
330 million, isn't it?
Yeah. Are they all the same? Why Krishna? What's so special about him? Isn't God just one? Does it matter?
Yeah, very good question. Of course, Nitai knows the answers very well. Well, I'll give my 2 cents to that complex subject matter. Well, one way that our Gurudev has framed this is with the concepts of evolution and revolution, right? And first of all, we can recognize that the Vedas as a whole and all the Vedic revelation, they're trying to bring us to the point of divine love. Right? That is their end goal. At least that is our opinion. That's our interpretation, that they're all trying to bring us to this conclusion that our real purpose is to serve, love, and have a loving relationship with our divine source, right? Our divine origin.
Jai Vishakadiri ki jai.
Jai Shri Gurudeva. So we will assert that this is the final goal of all the Vedic instruction, to bring us to that point, that there is a personality of divinity, and our natural constitutional nature is to have a loving relationship with him, right? Of course, how can you say that that's the case? That's maybe another discussion. We don't have so much time for that, because the Vedas discuss so many different topics, right? So how can you assert that this is the final? Maybe another time we'll go more into that. But for this discussion, it will say that all the Vedic revelation, the end goal is to bring us to this point, that we exist, our real purpose is to have a loving relationship with our Creator, right? It's not so unreasonable. And then Krishna consciousness is also saying that. But we can say that Krishna consciousness is going directly to that, whereas the whole Vedic system and the knowledge in the Vedas as a whole, we'll say they're taking more of a roundabout approach, right? And there's accommodation within the Vedic teachings for every personality type, let's say, right? Because first of all, not everyone feels the relevance of God in their life, right? Not everyone feels the relevance of religion in their life. There are some who have strong inclination to many lower activities, which are very detrimental. So how do you take care of those people? You can't just give them the conclusion, oh, Krishna's God, and you should serve him and love him. That has zero relevance to them. And if you try and tell them that, they'll just completely reject you and reject religion and everything. So you need to have a hook, right? And so the Vedic teachings are full of hooks, you can say. And there's some step-by-step development in this body of knowledge, right? There's a systematic development of knowledge, right? Just like within a school, right? There's class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. Here's James, welcome. And James, he's researched it himself. He's explored many of the world religions, and he came to this conclusion. Oh, it's here. We're having a discussion on comparative religion. So James is living proof. So that is how we can accommodate it. And going back to those initial terms of evolution and revolution, right? That the Vedas are presenting an evolutionary path of progress, step by step, right? There's, the plane of karma, right? For those who feel very much the pull of this world and the enjoyment of this world, the attractions of this world. So for those persons, you can't hit them over the head with, oh, you exist to serve Krishna, Oh, then there has to be something to accommodate persons like that, that, oh yeah, it's good to practice religion because actually it'll make your life more successful. Hey, what about that? Like, oh, okay, now it feels relevant, right? Now it's relevant. So there's something to attract and engage those persons, right? And then there's those who realize, well, I've suffered the reactions to enjoyment in this world. I don't want anything to do with it. I just want moksha, thank you very much. I just want liberation. I'm done with the whole thing, right? Then for those persons, there are the paths of jnana, right? Paths of yoga, right? Where there's strong emphasis on renunciation, detachment, and the attainment of liberation, freedom from the suffering and duality of this world, right? So then there's so much food for persons of that level of realization as well, right? Within the Vedic texts. Of course, I'm, broadly generalizing. There are so many subcategories, right? But then there are those more wholesome souls who say, well, actually, these other two paths, they don't really make sense to me. The path of karma, becoming more comfortable in this world, what's the use of that? Because I'm an eternal soul, so there's no meaning in that. And what is this path of renunciation? That's just a reaction to karma. That's just a reaction to this exploitative mentality, the being focused on enjoyment. Renunciation is just the reaction to having too much cake the day before. Right? So actually both of these things, right, karma, jnana, or enjoyment, renunciation, they're both unnatural. They're both two sides of the same coin, right? And so what's like my actual nature, right? If I understand that I'm soul, oh, and that's another thing. Those other things are only relevant if you're a member of this world, if you're living within the relativity of this world. But if you're say you're a liberated soul, then those pursuits are no longer relevant, right? I'm a soul. I don't need anything of this world, and I also don't need to be free from this world. So what's now relevant for me as an immortal soul, right? So then that's where the Vaishnava conception comes in, right? The positive plane of existence, where we live as dedicating units, right? And we have a loving, active, dynamic relationship with the Supreme Absolute, the Supreme Person. So we can say that Krishna consciousness, Vaishnavism as a whole, right? Broadly speaking, they're kind of going straight to that point, right? Whereas the Vedic revelation of a whole is slowly taking one to that point, right? And as evidence, we can look in Bhagavad Gita, right? Because Bhagavad Gita, in one way, we could see it as like a summary study of all the Vedic presentation, of the whole Vedic presentation as a whole. Although it's starting at a particular standard, it's kind of missing out the lower stages. Bhagavad Gita is starting from the platform of someone who's earnestly seeking spiritual life. They're finished with pursuit in this world, right? Like the beginning of the Vedanta darshan, tato brahma jigyasa. Right? Now you've done with the world of karma kanda. Now just focus on spirit, right? So Bhagavad Gita is also starting from that higher stage, right? And then it's going through karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga finally, right? And throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is presenting, discussing all these different yogas in depth, and then finally in the conclusion, there's the famous verse, Sarvadharmam prityaja mam ekam sharanam vrajare. Forget, actually, you know what, Arjuna? You can forget everything that I just said. Just come to me. You can skip past the bureaucracy. Just come directly to me for a loving relationship. Right? That's the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Come straight to the root of existence. Why make it, like we were discussing this morning, right? Why make it complicated when it can be so simple? Right? So, and then also another important and helpful reference is Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Because this is how Srimad Bhagavatam came about. Because Vyasadeva, right, Krishna Dvaipayan Veda Vyas, he's the compiler of all the Vedic texts, and he comes to he's presented this vast array of literature, right? There are the four Vedas, right? There are all the Puranas, there are the Upanishads, there are the Itihasas, Mahabharata, Ramayana. Right, and then he gives Vedanta Darshan on top of that, but Vyasadeva is still feeling something's missing, right? Something's missing, and then that's when his guru Narada came, right, in response to that unease that he was feeling, right? And then Narada and Vyasadeva is asking, Gurudev, please advise me. And then Narada actually chastises him and says, what have you done? You've actually, in the name of religion, you've actually made a hodgepodge of things. You've presented, this idea, that idea, and so on, but you haven't presented like a clear, all these different ideas are like jumbled together, right? There's no clear systematic development. There's no clear conclusion. You haven't given any clear conclusion, right? You've talked about the Bhagavan aspect of divinity. You've talked about Paramatma. You've talked about Brahman. You've talked about karma, jnana, and so on, yoga, bhakti. But it's all just jumbled together. It's all just one, as you said. It's all just looking like it's just one. So, and okay, you've given something, the way our Gurudev would phrase it, he said, you've given something to help the sick people who are sick, in other words, infected with hridrogam, heart disease, right, of attachment for this material world, or overly detached also, reacting against this world. So for persons who are sick in an abnormal condition, you've given something for them. But what about healthy people? You haven't given anything for them. What's their prescription? What about like I've heard some these health gurus, now they say sometimes, are you optimal? That's like a hook they'll use. Like, okay, yeah, you say you're healthy, you feel good and so on, but are you optimal? Are you living your most optimal self? So yeah, you've given something like medicine for people who are sick in this world. But what about someone who's at a higher stage and they actually want to live their normal life as an immortal being? What does immortality actually mean? Does it mean to live as a stone? Does it mean to sit on a cloud? Like, what does it actually mean? You just live in a void, or you enter extinction? What does immortality actually mean? This is something that's largely unaddressed or only very vaguely addressed in religious discussion. Like we were discussing the other day, right? Some descriptions are a little boring, you know? What are you going to do as an immortal being, you know? So what about that? Like, what is the life of an immortal being, right? What's their positive and progressive life? Right? And Narada also told Vyasadeva, well, you can move forward. And so, because Sajji's right behind you. You can come, there's lots of space. Don't be shy. I won't bite. I'm mostly vegetarian, except sometimes when I'm in China. And Narada also made the point that you know, you're famous as the person who gives religion. So now later, like if someone tries to correct what you've said, they're going to say, well, who the heck are you? You know, you think you know more than Veda Vyas? You know, what Vyasadeva is the authority. You know, so Narada said that you yourself have to correct what you've done. You have to clarify and place everything. You know, what is the order here, and what is the actual goal? Otherwise, it's all just mixed together, right? So this is all recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, which we understand to be the final Vedic text, right? And so then Vyasadeva, he begins very clearly from the beginning. He announces, you know, what this book is about, and first of all, in the very first, and especially the first 3 verses, they're like an introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam. And what's the first line of the first verse? It's the Janma Yasya Yataha, right? And so from that very first verse, he's establishing what is the nature of the origin of all of existence. It is a person. Right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It is a person. Right? And that Janma Yasya Yataha, that's the second sutra of Vedanta Darshan. So he's clearly showing the connection. Right? What I very vaguely touched upon in Vedanta Darshan, or Vedanta Sutra, I'm now clearly elaborating upon in this Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the second verse, Dharma projita kaita vocha paramo nirmat saranam satam. He's saying, here in this Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm giving the straight truth, right? No sugarcoating. I'm giving the straight truth, and I'm rejecting any type of mixed religion. I'm giving pure religion here, he says in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And tapachai unmulanam, it also says that the what is being described in this, the message in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is the real cure, it is the real medicine, and all the suffering of this world will be removed from its very root. It says, tapachai, the 3 principal sufferings of this world, adhyatmak, adhibhotak, adhidaivic, right? Suffering from the self, from others, from the environment. Unmulanam, it will be removed from the root. Because generally we're just dealing with band-aid solutions, superficial solutions that are treating the symptoms, not the cause. So, but the message of Srimad Bhagavat, this is taking it up right from its root, dealing with the root cause of all suffering in this world. And what is that? Namely, it is selfishness, right? Self-centered consciousness. Or another way, lack of guardian consciousness. Maybe a sweeter way to say it. Lack of guardian consciousness. That's the root of it all. So here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm giving that medicine, that real medicine, real prescription. And then the third verse, this is also very relevant to this discussion. Nigama kalpa turur galitam phalam shuka mukad, begins like that, and it gives this very beautiful analogy comparing all the scriptures and all the teachings of the Vedas, comparing to a wish-fulfilling tree, right? And what is the nature of this nigama kalpa turur, this wish-fulfilling tree? It is fulfilling all of one's desires for dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? This is generally what the Vedic texts are discussing, right? Dharma referring to material duty or ritual, religion, right? Artha, wealth, kama, pleasure, and finally moksha, liberation. So these are generally the desires of every living being in this world, whether they identify as Hindu or not. These are just standard human desires, right? And so the Vedas, they're fulfilling, like a wish-fulfilling tree, they're fulfilling all these human desires. Then how does Srimad Bhagavatam fit into this? It is the fruit on this tree. Right? It is in other words, it's the real conclusion of all the Vedas. Right? What is the purpose of a mango tree? To give a mango. Right? And so it's a perfect analogy that he gives, right? Because you also need all the other parts of the tree. We'll go straight for the mango, but you can't have the mango without the other, the root, the branches, the trunk, the leaves, and so on, right? So all the revelation of the Vedas, not that we're dismissing it, it also has its place. But what is its place? It's actually trying to take one to this conclusion. Divine love for that most lovable personality, Sri Krishna, who represents the fountainhead, the origin of all other manifestations of divinity. And so that fruit that fruit of divine love, that message of divine love is being represented and discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and all you mentioned also about other gods and so on, and they are also to be worshipped, but it is how we honor them as devotees of Krishna, right? Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's that line about Lord Shiva, right? The Lord Shiva is the best of all Vaishnavas, that is mentioned in Srimad. So we are also worshipping Lord Shiva, but while some may worship him as the supreme deity, right? There are many who do. We worship him as a great devotee of Krishna. So it is just about how you're reading the narrative, right? And Brahma Samhita is a very important text for us in that regard, because I like the way my friend Isha Bandhu put it. The Brahma Samhita is like Mahaprabhu's editorial on the Vedas. Like you're given understanding, like how do all these characters fit in? It's like if you're going to watch a movie, and you may look at like the list of main characters, and before you watch the movie, you don't really know like who's who and who's really important, and you just who's like the main character, who's a supporting character, and so on. And what's the plot? What's the narrative? You just see a list of the characters, and you don't really know who's who. But then when you may think, oh, he looks really interesting, But then when you go and watch the movie, then they'll all be placed. Oh, okay, so he's the main character, she's the other main character, and these guys are supporting characters, and this is the plot, this is the narrative. Okay, I get it, right? So it's like that. It's like from a distance, we're seeing all these, and especially from where we are, we're so far away from anything, right? Living in this temporary world of duality, cycling through samsara, right? So what do we know, So we're here, and we just like, wow, like all these amazing people up there, they all look the same to us, But then if we're hearing from those who have that closer view. Then, as is being told in Brahma Samhita, oh, this is his relationship with this, and oh, Krishna is actually the main character. They're all supporting him and cheering him on and serving him in their own way. They all have their own place, right? I'm glad we could talk about that. Yeah, no, it just kind of hit me in that moment, and Gurudev gives that nice explanation about evolution and revolution. So, then to tie everything up, Krishna consciousness is the revolutionary path, right? Going straight to the goal. And the general Vedic revelations taking that line of evolution, gradually taking us there. Like that. So nice topic.